Okay. So today I'm actually gonna do my first reaction video. I came across this video. I watched it in its entirety, and it's these guys, the home inspector and the realtor, are talking about exactly what goes on in the home inspection process when it comes to buying a house. So I'm gonna give you my opinion on a lot of things. I'm gonna probably add a couple more points that I wish I would have mentioned. But nevertheless, it's just like it's just everything that I've always been saying. So without further ado, let's watch this video. It's about an hour and 17 minutes long, but we're gonna try to expedite it and see how fast we can get through it.
Find now that buyers' agents aren't showing up for home inspections?
Yes, actually, I'm finding that most agents don't show up for inspections. I get a lot of inspections where it's just me and the clients. They're going like, "Where's my agent?" And in the back of my head, I'm thinking your agent doesn't care about you. This is a big deal to that person buying the house. This might be the only house they ever buy. Homeowners also need to take responsibility for the quality of their inspection by being a meaningful part of it, by being there, by asking questions, looking for the best home inspector, not the cheapest home inspector. I wish it were reversed. I wish buyers weren't asking their realtor who the good inspectors are. I wish people, when they're thinking of buying a home, would be asking inspectors who the good realtors are.
I agree with that. The problem is that when you're buying a house, you're not the point of contact. The first point of contact is a realtor, not a home inspector, not a lender, not a title guy, not an insurance guy. It's it's the realtor. That's the first point of contact.
Amen. And to that point, that's why we're doing what we do right now. That's exactly why we're recording this video. And if you're listening to this and your kid is getting ready to buy a house or your grandkid's getting ready to buy a house, you should be sharing this video with them. What do you find are the most important elements in a home inspection?
Almost every home inspector I know understands that water is the number one enemy. The more I understood that and the deeper I got, I started to realize that there was some really common root causes of these major defects. I started studying ancient structures and ancient building methodologies, went to it.
And yes, I mean, even in your own body, it's good to drink water, but it could also kill you because if you drink too much, you're gonna drown.
Italy, Rome, Pompeii. You go to these places and you see, why have these structures stood for thousands of years when we can't get a home in America to stand up for 70 years?
Preston Kincaid, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You know, we do have a shout out. There is a reason how we met.
Yeah, one of my followers reached out to you guys, I guess. Alma Melvin. Alma Melvin 58459 is her screen name there on TikTok. But yeah, she reached out to you guys.
Yeah, she said that she loved you and yeah, that you should be on the show. So here you are. So we listen to our subscribers.
Shout out to Alma.
So if you're listening to this and you have somebody you want us to speak with, just comment and we'll do the rest. So how long have you been a home inspector?
Well, full-time as a primary focus since just about COVID. So 2020 is when I kind of dove in head first. I've been doing inspections for a long time. I did my first inspection back in 2001. It was one of those things I never really took seriously. The story on.
So everything that they're going to talk about here, keep in mind that I'm in California. I think he's in Maryland. I don't know where the realtor's from, but they're not from the West Coast. They're talking about the East Coast. So a lot of times, the inspection procedure is a little bit different. They have houses with basements. We do have houses with basements, but not as much as you would see in the East Coast. So the procedure that he's going to talk about obviously pertains to houses that are, extremely old, turn of the century, Victorian homes, which we do have in California, but not as many as they do on the East Coast.
How I became a home inspector is a little strange, but it was always just kind of a side gig. And then during COVID, I was kind of, trying to.
That's an important point. Many people start doing home inspections as a side gig. There's nothing wrong, but it would be nice to work with somebody that is doing it full time. And I'm not knocking on what he said. It's just that many home inspectors do start as a side gig.
Figure out where I wanted to go next. And I realized that home inspection was something that I really enjoyed. And, that was really kind of the direction I wanted to go. So that was when I dove in head first, started really working on growing the business and, making it my primary role.
What did you do before?
Wow. What haven't I done before? So I have a technology development background. I was in software development for a long time, was in marketing and advertising for decades, raced motorcycles professionally. I've started over 100 businesses, so I've been self-employed most of my life. So there's a lot that I've done.
How did you, you said that home inspections was something that interests you, but why? What was the main reason for you to dive into that?
So primarily the main reason that I love home inspection is because what drives me on a daily basis is helping people. And I know that sounds kind of
corny, but it's true. My background is in new construction, and I really enjoy doing the walkthroughs and whatnot.
like a pat answer, but like I genuinely like helping people. And even within the inspection community, I help new inspectors. I help current inspectors. I have a program called Jumpstart, my Home Inspector Jumpstart series of videos.
I think I should start that, a little home inspection school, something like this, but for California. The reason why I say California, because there's a lot of systems in the East Coast that we don't use in California. Not as much. For example, they use a lot of boiler heaters that run with oil, very old system that they still work. We don't have that here. They have radiators like in old apartment buildings, old condominiums. I've come across those, but not as many as these guys.
Helping new inspectors get their businesses running. But when it comes to home inspection, these are almost always people's biggest investments. And it's one of those arenas where there's not a lot of people looking out for the home buyer, right? At the end of the day, and a lot of times what I have to tell clients is, I'm not calling realtors liars by any stretch of the imagination. But what I'm saying is I'm the first person in the entire equation that's going to actually tell you the raw, honest truth about the house. The listing agent's taking beautiful photos. The buyer's agent is showing you a bunch of houses. They don't always know, all the little details. So you can go all the way through a transaction and never actually know what you're buying until someone like me steps in and says, okay, here's exactly what's going on with this house.
And home inspectors are unbiased. We are an unbiased third party that we look at the house completely different. We're like stuck in the middle.
And I fundamentally believe that every person buying the home has a right to know what they're buying.
I find it interesting that you said that you started your business during the COVID era. And that was a time when a lot of buyers didn't ask for home inspections because if they did, they wouldn't get the house. So how were you able, how did that affect your business getting started?
It's interesting because that's still going on. Like that trend, that was kind of a new trend. That was kind of something that real estate hadn't seen before, was
never
people just by and large waiving inspections. And what we had was a housing shortage and really a crisis and a lot of people with money. So what happened during COVID is, I'll tell you a trend I don't hear talked about a lot, is a lot of renters stopped paying their rent, but they started banking that money. So a lot of people had down payments. So what you had was this huge flow of people wanting to buy houses. But we were still doing inspections. There were still people that were saying, okay, I waived my inspection and we're buying it as is, but I still want to know.
Yeah, COVID was crazy. We were busy, super busy.
I still want a punch list of stuff to fix after I buy the home, that sort of thing. So it didn't really affect my business negatively. And I differentiate myself a little bit from most other home inspectors. I do things a little differently. And so for me, I was still busy. I was still in demand. And my very first year after COVID, 2021, I did 342 inspections.
That's
So it was a
perfect.
busy year for me.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get most of your work?
It's morphed and changed. In the first 3 years, primarily it was realtor referrals. I really focused on building good relationships with good ethical realtors. That's where I got most of my work from. And then in my third year, I started doing more social media. And right now it's about a 50-50 split. I get a lot of realtor referrals still, and a lot of my work comes from social media. And then the two kind of work together. Realtor referrals, they usually give 3 or 4, inspectors, as a referral. But then a lot of times I'll win that business because they've seen me on social media, or they go find me on
That's
social
true.
media.
That's
So it
true.
differentiates me.
Man, if it wasn't for my business, I would not have social media. But the more I listen to other professionals on how to get the business, I was off social media for a while and now I'm back. But yeah, so social media is good. It could also ruin your life.
Now, it's interesting because you're in New York, and I don't know how the brokerage side works in New York. I mean, I know a couple brokers in New York. What part of New York are you located in?
So I'm about 45 minutes north of Binghamton. I'm like kind of right in between Binghamton and Syracuse. I'm up in the middle of nowhere, out in farmland. It's pretty remote where I'm at.
Yeah. It's interesting because what I have found, and what you just said with realtors giving 1 to 3 referrals and having the buyer essentially pick, what I find is that the buyer has no idea of any home inspectors for the large part, at least here locally in Maryland and a lot of the other parts of the country where I have broker relationships. But I find that it's typically the real estate agent gives a referral of who they use, and a lot of times the buyer just goes for that. Is that the case, or are you really seeing where they give 3 and buyers are calling up and questioning you about your inspection process?
That's a really great question, and I appreciate the transparency in that question, because what I find a lot of times up here, it's normal, and I think in some places it's required for them to give multiple referrals. Like they can't just say, here, use my guy, right? But even here, you still get that finger tap. They still hand you a list of 4, but they still go, here's the guy you want to use, right?
And the reason why realtors do that is because they are concerned of getting sued. They don't want to get sued. If something happens, then, well, you told me to use Rico for your home inspector. So, I'm going to come after you because of that. But truthfully, the judge, there hasn't been a case that I know of in any part of the United States that the judge is going to throw away the case out the window because the realtor recommended 3 or 4. I honestly think that's a myth, but he said something important that I didn't realize, that some states you are required to give a choice of 3 or 4 home inspectors. I don't know which states are those.
Now, the trick is, in my area, there are inspectors that get that finger tap by being a soft inspector. They write really soft reports. They don't find a lot of problems. Realtors love, not all, some realtors love those soft inspectors. They're half blind. They never find any problems with the house. Those guys get very busy and make a lot of money. And it's an issue for me. Like, I actually consider that fraud. For me, on the flip side, I've had to work really hard at educating the realtors that I work with as to why it's important to give me that finger tap for being a thorough, ethical inspector. And part of those things are reminding them that, when you sell people houses, they're going to become your neighbor and you're going to bump into them at the grocery store.
What you just said is, I have found to be so true, because the inspectors that, and look, you've got both sides of the spectrum, but a lot of home inspectors that point out too much are known to real estate agents as deal killers.
Deal killers, yeah.
I mean, you've heard that before.
I've seen so many home inspection reports that I get for second opinion, and oh my goodness, these home inspectors are like, and this is when I say I love my competition, because this is what I'm up against. It's ridiculous. They point out stuff that why, especially the wording. Oh my God.
Right? And they don't want a deal killer. You won't get a call back. And it reminds me, my attorney told me about a case that he had where the home inspector, under oath, had said that there was a moisture problem with this particular house, and they were being sued. The inspector was being, I guess the agent was being sued. And the inspector was testifying, and I guess to save his own skin, which I don't think it ended very well, he said, well, because it was, do you ever use moisture meters in basements of houses? And he said, yeah, I use them all the time. Well, did you use it in this particular case? No. And why not? And he basically said that if he did, he had used it on a house prior, and the agent said, if you ever do that again on one of my home inspections, I won't call you back.
Oh my gosh, that happens a lot here in California with a lot of realtors. Why did you use that? Why did you use an infrared camera? Why did you use this? Your job is just to do it. It happens a lot. And this home inspector, obviously they were in litigation, but I am certain that he reached out to his realtor and said, hey, what's going on? And most likely the realtor said, it's in our legal department. I can't talk to you. I can't have any communication with you because now it's in the legal department. We home inspectors you're on your own. You're on your own. And that's when okay, all right, let's go.
And I mean, this was, straight out of the mouth of my attorney who was defending the case. So, and before we go on, I just want to say something else. I don't know whether you know, but I wrote a home buyer course, and I don't think there's ever been anything like it ever published or put out there.
I'm gonna skip a little bit on this video because it's a lot of good information, and this is an hour and 17 minutes. I want to see if I could condense it to much shorter. So we're just going to jump around. Let's see here.
We don't really have to evaluate that stuff. Mostly what we're looking at your story and go, that's why I saw that door frame leaning. That's why I saw, that foundation crack on the outside. What on the outside of the home, a vertical meandering crack might look really minor. And then on the inside of the basement, you see that there's a big, 3/4 inch gap at the bottom. There's differential displacement. When you see that, you go, okay, that little crack that I saw outside is now a much more significant issue, right? So that's my methodology, and that's how I look at the homes. And then what I like to do is to look at that and say, what's the solution? It's not just here's the problem, good luck, call a contractor. How do you solve this? How do you fix this? How severe is it? And
and that's the thing that we home inspectors, we have to give them a solution and how to fix this. But our wording has to be, I never tell my clients how they should fix it. Even though if I know it, what I do is, this is how I seen it done. Why? To prevent a lawsuit. Well, my home inspector Rico said, this is how you're supposed to do it. No. This is how I've seen it done. There may be plenty of ways of fixing stuff.
Find myself saying quite often, isn't that bad? The house isn't going to fall down, but here's what you got to do because this is only going to get worse. Right. And then we start stepping through all the things, and here's where it's primarily happening. And so I do like to be solutions oriented in how I report, and to give people understanding that these things are usually fixable. They're almost always fixable. It's just a matter of how much time and money it'll take.
Right.
And then they just have to gauge whether that's within their expectations, within their budget, within their, you know, their desire to continue with that purchase. Most of the time, too.
What are you looking for as far as the systems inside, the electrical, plumbing, heating, and air systems?
So here they're going to talk about the systems, the roof, the plumbing, the electrical, the heat and air structural. So we're going to skip through that because I'm going to put a link on the video down in the description so you guys could watch it. But I'm going to skip on it because there's a lot of more good information.
Flashing, things like that, that, yeah, you probably can see from a drone. I mean, I like your process. The inspector said, well, I'm not going to take this cover off of the
pacemaker. You never know what it is. That you could be shutting off somebody's server, you know, to a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Who knows? So we're really not supposed to do things. But when I get into a house, if I see they've got stuff plugged into all these outlets, and if I pull one and I plug in my tester and it's got an open ground, and I pull the second one and I plug in and it's got an open neutral, and I start to connect the dots, I'm going to unplug all those things. I'm checking them because I'd rather be sued by the seller for breaking their electronic device than to be sued by my client for not doing a thorough job.
It's an interesting point because I see all of the time on these inspection reports that they were unable to inspect certain areas because they flat out refused to open something. I can remember being on a home inspection and and I think it's important if you're an agent listening or you're a buyer and you should know these things. If you're walking around the outside of the house and the house has a crawl space and there's a panel covering the access to the crawl space, you should be letting that listing agent know that needs to be opened up. So
yeah, that's the thing that if the listing agent knows there's going to be a home inspection, they know what needs to be accessible. If they have the attic access in the closet and they have a gun safe, they have, other luxury items like, the luxury brand purses, luxury brand shoes, they have expensive hats. I'm not moving any of that because that's a lot of money. No, that needs to be accessible.
that the inspector can get in there and do their inspection. And I had a situation where I had an inspector that I hadn't worked with. I was filling in. My agent was away on vacation, and I went to the home inspection in place. And the inspector said, well, I'm not going to take this cover off of the, I need a screwdriver to unscrew the screws to get into the crawl space, and we're not allowed to do that. And I said, hey, no problem. I went to my truck and I got my screw gun and I unscrewed it for him. I said, there you go. It's open. Do your job.
That's actually a good idea. I think realtors should carry the basic tools, a small drill, a screwdriver, because many home inspectors, I carry all kinds of stuff with me. I mean, you name it, I have it. If I don't, it's because I never needed it. But nevertheless, we home inspectors cannot dismantle anything because we don't want to damage and then later have to replace the whole thing.
But I see this all of the time.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going to piss everybody off right now, including other inspectors. Here's what I'm going to say. Most of the time when you see these things in a report that says was not readily accessible, couldn't access it, blah, blah, blah. All right. They're usually just saying, I couldn't inspect it. There you go. All right. Number one, this gets all the way back to being proactive. When you schedule an inspection with us, our system sends the listing agent 3 emails and 2 text messages before the inspection saying, please make sure everything is readily accessible, open, unlocked, access panels, make sure the gas is on, the water's on. I will tell you that over the years, realtors, listing agents specifically, are doing less and less. We are finding homes every day that aren't ready to inspect. And I remember a day when listing agents actually went to the home and made sure everything was working. And we catch the heat for that quite often. That, well, why didn't you just turn on the water valve? Well, because when I do that, you guys sue us for the leak and the damage it caused, right? So why didn't you turn on the gas valve to test the heating, right? Well, because the house blows up, I got to pay for the house.
It does happen. It happens a lot. It happens a lot. And if it didn't happen a lot, none of us would have mentioned it.
I always want to say, why didn't you do your job as a listing agent to make sure it was ready to inspect? Right? You've done this a million times. You know, panels have to be, the gas has to be on. This is not something you don't know. All right. But on the flip side, right across the board, you're going to find home inspectors are really resistant to this idea because they don't want their clients present at the inspection. Just come at the end. I'll give you a summary. You can take a sip off a fire hydrant. I'll try to give you a 3-hour inspection in 10 minutes so I can run out the door and get to the next.
Yeah, I want my clients to be there. It makes it so much easier because most likely they're not going to read the report. They're going to go by what I said. So I'm going to put in the report what needs to be done, what I need to put in the report, but I also want them to visibly see what I'm talking about. If there's a broken window, if there's anything that in the report, it just minimizes so many questions. Once they get the report, they're like, oh yeah, I just said that.
Next inspection, right? All right. I've been a very vocal advocate for encouraging clients to attend their inspections and to make them a meaningful part of it, not just go stand on the lawn. No, I want you to go with me. I want you to shadow me and ask me a million questions along the way. And I'm going to explain all this stuff. And guess what? When I get to that panel that has 6 screws in it, it's really hard for me to tell you I can't take that off. The accountability is there. That client is going, what about this? You're not going to go in there? Yeah, let me go grab my screw gun. What, you're not going to take this off? Yeah, I'll pry this open. I make jokes with listing agents present where I say, listen, if I can't get it open, I've got crowbars and hand grenades in the car. I'm going in that space. So I'm somewhat of a rebel in that regard where I'll take on the additional liability. I'll get sued before I will do an inferior inspection. Now,
as a home inspector, I've been sued several times. And luckily I won because the way my report was written. And because they never read the report. But nevertheless, and there's a saying in our home inspection industry that if you haven't been sued, you're doing something wrong.
Are there times I have to say it wasn't readily accessible? Yes, it happens all the time. If I get to a panel and there's 55 screws, 2 bolts, and a padlock on it, there's a limit to what I'm going to do. I'm not going to stand there for an hour and a half disassembling the house. But if there's an access panel that could be pried off, I've been known to actually break panels and replace them. If it's just a rotted piece of plywood, proper. If you want to replace it, by all means, go ahead. If this is my house, I'd probably leave it. So these are.
When is it that you see, in Maryland, we have an inspection addendum where the buyer selects which inspections they want, right? Structural inspection being what you do, the general inspection. Then we have things like radon, mold, chimney, that
water testing. Yep.
Water, if it's private, well, septic. Yes.
Yep.
When you're in a house, when is it that you call for somebody else to come in? And so what are some of the items where you're looking at and recommending further evaluation from that specific profession?
All right. So generally speaking, home inspectors are considered to be general practitioners. Like, we're generalists.
I've always said that.
So in a healthcare analogy, like we're the general practitioner. I'm not a spine specialist. I'm not a brain surgeon, right? I'm not a neurologist. I'm not a neurologist. So what we're doing is looking at things and then recommending professionals if we either think it needs repair, improvement, or further evaluation. Okay. So my reports are very different than my verbal narration. And this is another reason I really encourage clients to be present. There are things I'm supposed to do in a report. And there are things that I do verbally that are different. I will tell somebody, look, I got to recommend further evaluation or repair of this. Frankly, if this were my house, I'd probably leave it the way it is. Right?
Sometimes the repair.
What's an example of that? S-traps under sinks. I see them every day. Where I live, most of the plumbing goes into the basement, so I see S-traps all the time. The old chrome S-traps had a very deep sweep to them, and they will siphon and they will go dry. Yes, I will give you that. The newer S-traps have 2 sharp angles built into them that create turbulence. And I have done my own independent testing. We actually did a video where we were pouring 5-gallon buckets right into these S-traps with different lengths of pipe connected to them. We could not get them to siphon. So I have to tell people all the time, look, this is going to be in the report. I've never smelled septic gases in a house that had these types of S-traps.
Yeah.
It's improper. If you want to replace it, by all means, go ahead. If this is
Yeah, back to that point. I mean, I tell people that they should plan on $1,000 to $1,200 for home inspections. I mean, if the inspection contingency within 3 to 5 days, they're doing you a disservice because you cannot.
That is so true. If you are a buyer and is working with a realtor, and to get your offer accepted, typically the contingency period they throw in there's like less than 5 days. That is not fair for you as a buyer because you don't have enough time. Now, granted, if the house is maybe less than 5 years old and you still want to do a home inspection, the problems are not going to be as significant as if you would buy a house that's 50, 60 years old, maybe older than that. We don't know. But the thing is this, that if you have a house that was built maybe 25, 30 years and older, then a 10 to 14-day inspection contingency, it's appropriate because you're going to get the home inspector in there first. Well, what if you found microbial growth? What if you find other stuff that's going to need more than your contingency period? Now, granted, there's been some times that you could extend that period, that inspection contingency, but sometimes they don't. They have backup offers. Why would they take yours? They're just cancel and call the other one. So yeah.
And a good reputable inspector in that time period, or they're not busy for why? I mean, why wouldn't they be busy? but it's sort of the listing agent is going to squeeze you. You need to be a good negotiator, or if you're a buyer, you need to put your foot down. Because if an agent's saying 3 to 5 days, you need 10 to 4. I don't even like 7 days because you have weekends involved in there. You should be looking for 10 minimum, 14-day ideal contingency or inspection period, and put your foot down. If they want to sell that house, and especially in a market where things are sitting on the market longer, price reductions are happening, don't be bullied by that listing agent trying to tell you, well, we'll accept your offer, but you need to get this contingency period down. So I just wanted to say that.
No, I agree, man. Listen, we do everything we can. If we know someone's on a tight 7-day or even a 5-day, period, we'll run out same day. Most of the good inspectors that I know are good. They're 100%. Like, I couldn't agree with you more. The thing is that
I'm glad you did talk about pricing. Let's talk about your industry at large, because I look overall, and I'm very transparent. I feel there's a right way of doing things and a wrong way of doing things, and you're either setting your business up to have great reviews and great success, or you're going to be firefighting and living in that's who they're sucking up to.
Yeah.
And when a buyer's coming along and they're saying to the buyer agent, I don't know, do you have a home inspector? They're like, oh yeah, of course I do. My buddy, it's so-and-so. And don't you dare kill this deal. We're close. And I've spent my commission already. This happens, right? This is the reality of this industry. I say to, like we have already talked about, you should be going to home inspection companies, should be relying on doing exactly what you're doing, hitting the airwaves, getting clients to call you, buyers directly to call you, or sellers if they want to get a pre-listing inspection. They should be going straight to the inspector, or if the agent is giving them referrals, they should be just taking that as exactly what it is. It's a referral. You should still call the inspection company, ask them what they do, look at their reviews, call other companies as well, find out who you feel is you're comfortable with hiring because you're hiring them as the buyer.
Oh, I agree with everything you just said 100%. 100%. Like, I couldn't agree with you more. The thing is that I wish it were reversed. I wish buyers weren't asking their realtor who the good inspectors are. I wish people, when they're thinking of buying a home, would be asking inspectors who the good realtors are.
Oh yeah.
Amen.
Oh
Because
yeah.
we know. We
Look,
know. Like, we could tell you who the good ethical realtors are.
And
Yes.
and to that point, that's why we're doing what we do right now. That's exactly why we're recording this video, to get it out into the public. And if you're listening to this and your kid is getting ready to buy a house, or your grandkids getting ready to buy a house, you should be sharing this video with them,
Yeah.
because that is the way that it should, that we would like to see it go. And it would eliminate a lot of this remorse that people are experiencing buying a house and finding out they need to spend $10,000 or $15,000 in the first 30 days of living in their house. But let me ask you, overall, if it were the other way around, where
Oh, this is
buyers
good.
went directly and found their own home inspectors and did not go through their agent,
This is good.
would the inspection results produce, or would the inspection themselves produce different results
Yes.
for the buyer?
Yes.
So here's what I can tell you. Here's a dirty little secret in the inspection community that I'm going to let the cat out of the bag right now. By and large, right across the board, almost every inspector that I know is going to nod their head when I say this.
Mm-hmm.
We all wish that we didn't have to be magic wordsmiths. We all wish that we could just go into a house and do our job without having to worry about not pissing off the realtor, not being labeled a deal killer.
That's so true.
Most of the good inspectors that I know are good. All of us are held to such a high standard, and it's such a high liability job. You make one mistake, it could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's true.
You miss one little thing, you're cooked, right? So we have to go through all this continuing education. We're in groups every day. We're sharing knowledge.
Yeah.
There's a hive mind happening. But then what we have to do is then go in and go, well, should we say that this is a safety hazard, or should we say it's a safety concern? Should we say this is, we have to get into this wordsmithing that makes our jobs really hard. Because
I think that one right there, I think I like to use a safety hazard, fire hazard, something that it hasn't happened yet. It's a hazard. A safety concern, to me, it's something that it could happen right now. For example, the balcony is loose, the handrail is loose. Could you fall today? Probably not. But if it doesn't get fixed and you continually use it, then it becomes a hazard. You're going to fall one day.
Because if we choose the wrong words and this realtor thinks that we freaked out their client, now we're cooked. We're not going to get the referrals anymore.
That's true.
I wish that dynamic didn't exist. And I think every home inspector in the country wishes that doesn't exist.
Reach out to Preston, follow him on Instagram.
But at the end of the day, you want to know the one thing that I think drives the most lawsuits, the most threats of lawsuits, then, is the fact that the people don't read the reports.
Yeah,
it's not
they
about
don't
the
read it.
agreement. The agreement can say, I'm allowed to go kick your baby. That doesn't mean I'm legally allowed to go kick your baby. You know what I mean? Like, an agreement can say anything. In the real world and in the courts, it's different. But the problem is almost every instance I've ever seen, and I'm in private Facebook groups, so I see a lot of these stories, it's the people didn't read the report.
And that is so true. The people didn't read the report. They didn't understand it. They were so rushed to get into the house. And especially in California, where lawsuits are rampant. And that's not fair. That's not fair. But I try to condense this video as much as I can. I'm going to put a link down in the comments. But tell me, what do you guys think about this? If you're a home buyer, you can call me directly. You can leave a comment. My phone number directly is 951-202-4492. And you could look at everything that my website's there. I could answer all your questions. If you're looking to buy in a house, call me. I'll set you up with the best realtors in San Diego, LA, Orange County. Don't know many in San Fernando, I mean, in the Bakersfield area. But nevertheless, let me know what you guys think about this. I would like to know you guys' input. Leave it down in the comments, and you guys make it a great day. Goodbye. My last applause.